Yeah. First up, followed by
and its resilient people. Guard its borders, O Lord, and shield it from threats that loom near and far. Let your mighty presence be a fortress around its cities, its towns, and its countryside. In times of challenge and strife, be their unwavering stronghold. In moments of uncertainty, be their guiding light. Amen.
Thank you both very much. Past President Carlo Capua, come on up and give us a visitor introduction, please.
Thank you, President Captain Kirk. It's a pleasure to welcome all of our guests, especially those on Zoom. Thank you for tuning in. We have a few folks with us in person. Nancy Mitchell is a guest of Rotarian Bob Mitchell. Nancy, where are you? Round of applause for Nancy. Mindy Collins is a guest of Brendan Harrington. Mindy. Mindy's right here. Thank you, Mindy. We have Corbin Couch, who is a guest of past President Mark Nurden. Corbin, thank you for being here. And I brought three guests. One is Ms. Cherie Gordon, Economic Development for Fort Worth. We also have from Houston, Mr. John Osborne. John, thanks for being with us. And all the way from Belgium, and he is a former Rotarian from the Rotary Club in Johannesburg, South Africa, is Mr. Philippe Delcourt. Are there any other guests that may have come in late and did not get introduced? All right, back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Past President Carlo. I'd like to take time right now to thank our sponsor. Our sponsor this week is Audubon Fort Worth. Audubon Fort Worth wants you to love what you drive with Porsche, BMW, Volvo, Jaguar, Volkswagen, Land Rover. Audubon now welcomes Mini Cooper to Fort Worth. For 40 years, Audubon is bringing premier vehicles and services to discerning automobile enthusiasts. Love what you drive. Love what you drive. Exactly. All right, it's time for the four-way test. I beg your pardon? Thank you, appreciate that. All right, now for our four-way test. So for all of our visitors, the four-way test is what every Rotarian strives to use as a filter for everything we think, say, or do. If it doesn't meet the test, we try not to think, say, or do those things. So if you please, along with me, let's recite it. Number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we're going to throw it out the window for a minute and bring out Mr. John Fletcher, the CEO and president of Fletcher Consulting, for our newscast.
It's overwhelming. Thanks so much. You know, this is Friday the 13th, but it's not the best day to deliver a Rotary newscast with all the Middle East conflict. I do hope we can take a few moments to lighten up at this time in a moment of darkness with a smile or a chuckle. We need to take a short break away from the seriousness. So let's start with this. I do feel as welcome as the latest candidate for the Republican presidential debate, or at least for Speaker of the House. Oh, and being Friday the 13th, this is also International Day of Failure. In a related story, our Dallas Cowboys, fresh off a whipping from San Francisco, play on Monday night against San Diego. And it's also Skeptics Day. Speaking of skeptics, our own Texas Rangers, let's hear it for them, playing in the American League Championship Series. It's an all-Texas affair, and it all starts on Sunday with games 1 and 2 in Houston, and then games 3, 4, and 5 is necessary in Arlington. By the way, the Rangers did defeat the teams with the top 2 records in the American League in the first 2 rounds. In more sports news, the NFL network has caught a lot of flack lately. In its most crucial point of Sunday's game with the Kansas City Chiefs, the network cut away from the winning touchdown pass to show a slow motion replay of Taylor Swift eating nachos. And the whopping $1.7 billion Powerball winner may have a Fort Worth Rotary connection. Following the drawing, our own Gary Cumby, who was scheduled to do today's Rotary News, immediately called in to say he would be sick 4 days away and would be unavailable the rest of the week. So how do you know on Tuesday you're going to be sick on Friday? The good news is he could become the largest, most generous Paul Harris fellow ever with the winnings. A local Chick-fil-A ground to a halt on Wednesday after an employee accidentally told another employee, "My pleasure." As a result, the pair went back and forth in a endless loop, and all passengers, or all the customers, were just in the line waiting for their food. And interest rates have continued to rise. As a result, a man with a 3% mortgage has now been voted the world's most eligible bachelor. And the Republican debate at the Reagan Presidential Library a couple weeks ago taught us a new definition. The word debate actually has been changed to mean all talk at once. With 7 contestants on what appeared to be a game show, it was a constant episode of look at me, like a bunch of third graders. And in more political news, California Governor Gavin Newsom has said that his state believes in free speech, and if you don't agree, then you will be arrested. And the state is raising its minimum wage, California that is, to $20 an hour on April 1st. No fooling, it's going to happen. Of course, that $1 small hamburger at McDonald's is going to cost $2.50, but that is the price of progress. And a federal judge has issued yet another ruling that former President Donald Trump has grossly overstated, get ready for this, how good his performance was in the movie Home Alone 2. And Senator Robert Menendez from New Jersey entered the plea stating, "I am innocent of all those things that I did." And oops, she did it again. Britney Spears, fresh off divorce and freedom from her conservatorship battle, has filmed herself dancing with large kitchen knives. Now that's bound to prove to the judge that she is of completely sound mind. And this just in, Britney Spears seems to have scored a gig as a hibachi chef at Benihana. And in food news, let me get frank with you about Oscar Mayer. In a meathead marketing decision, the company changed the name from the Wienermobile to the Frankmobile. The change was met with such protest that within 4 months they changed it back to the Wienermobile, which was great news, by the way, for disgraced former Congressman Anthony Weiner, who claims to be getting a name, image, and likeness deal out of the whole thing. And looting has gotten out of hand recently in Los Angeles. Mobs broke into an Apple Store and a Foot Locker. Foot Locker officials were shocked when their employees, all dressed in white and black striped shirts like referees, were throwing flags and blowing their whistles. Despite that, the looting continued. And the UAW strike is almost over if you're getting ready to buy a car, because federal negotiators propose giving the workers 300 days of annual vacation, a 2-day work week, and a 670% pay raise. But the union rep said that's not enough. And for this weekend, break out your sweaters. The high temperature is 81 today. It'll be in the 70s over the weekend. And our TCU Horned Frogs play tomorrow at home against BYU. And so that, folks, is Rotary News. Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you very much, sir. That is awesome, as always. Next up, past President Sean Snell for an announcement. Richard Knight, you are on deck.
Thank you. Rotary Club of Fort Worth. Fall means nominations and our board election cycle. It's traditional that the immediate past president serve as the chair of the nominating committee, along with 4 other Rotarians who are either past presidents or past board directors. So this year's nominating committee, I think it's on the slide, myself, past president Fernando Costa, who is also a member of the Governance and Bylaws Committee, Jason Ellis, past treasurer and director, who also happens to be a past club president of the Colleyville Rotary, Jim Witten, past president, also a member of the Governance and Bylaws Committee, and Roger Yandell, past treasurer and board director, who has been an active member for almost 51 years. We have been meeting, we met in September. Our task was to identify 10 members, 5 of whom will be elected by you for a 2-year term commencing on July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2026. We followed the bylaws as set forth in Article 1, and you may recall that last February, our club revised the bylaws, and there were quite a few changes, not monumental changes, but changes nonetheless to this particular section. So you might need to reference that if you're interested in pursuing any of these points. And the nominating committee therefore proposes this slate, I think on slide 2, and I need to remind everyone there is strictly no campaigning here in the Rotary Club of Fort Worth on behalf of yourself or on behalf of others. So these Rotarians have all graciously agreed to serve should they be approved by the board and elected by club membership in our November elections. They were in the Rotograph earlier this week. Mike Bickley, Carol Del Real, Harriet Harrell, Charlie Johnson, Chris Jordan, Christina Judge, John Laudeslager, Don Marable, Ann Sheets, and Robert Stearns. Now, just to remind, our bylaws also invite additional nominations from the floor. So any of you can also propose additional nominees, so long as these members set out or meet the qualifications as set out in our revised bylaws, Article 1, Section 4. They will, as considered by the nominating committee, their name will then be added to the ballot. A proposer writes a formal letter to the chair, myself, setting out the qualifications of the individual being nominated. I'll just touch on real quickly what the qualifications are. 3 full years of membership, that is meant to be recent and consecutive. So if someone has been a member in years past, they have to come back and be 3 consecutive members recently to qualify. At least 1 year since their prior board service, prior effective service as a board director, committee chair, or committee member, a serious understanding and interest in Rotary, its principles, club and activities, good attendance, additional financial support. This is something that has always traditionally been in place. And just to clarify, we need to probably do some gold badge education coming up, but we really encourage, traditionally the club has always encouraged and had a qualification for board service be giving $100 or more each due cycle to our club endowments. We've also certainly recognized giving to the Rotary Foundation or other club giving. Also, able and willing to attend board meetings, district conferences, finally able and willing to serve as director chair and interested in all activities. So our schedules, our workloads shift from year to year, but certainly we hope at some point each and every one of you will consider serving on the board. So make sure you tick off those boxes so that next year's nominating committee can find you. Thanks.
Thank you, Past President Sean. Mr. Knight, come on up here.
President Captain, thank you. Thank you. Rotarians, it is good to see you all. I've missed y'all. Y'all miss me a little bit? Yes. Great, great. Just wanted to remind you briefly that the 4th annual Rotary Minority Business Awards is having its kickoff mixer next Wednesday, the 18th at Game Theory Restaurant, 804 South Main Street, from 5 to 7 p.m. Representatives from both the minority chambers will be in attendance. This is a free event. Light bites will be available. Adult beverages, however, are on your own dime. Space is limited, so please use the QR code on the screen or in the rotograph to register. And I want to encourage each of you to nominate a minority-owned business, but even go a step further and bring a minority business leader to the event with you. Now, this is our opportunity to recognize organizations that line up with our very own Rotary four-way test values. So we will also be seeking advocates from the club this year. We didn't do a very good job of that last year, to be honest, and that's on me, but we're gonna do better this year, okay? Help us make the 2024 Business Awards ceremony much better than last year. And as always, I thank you for your support, and I return you to your regularly scheduled program.
Thank you, Richard. Next up, Ryan Jodich and Kelly Louder with the Polio Plus announcement.
Go right in the middle.
Sure.
I'm Ryan Jodish, your Rotary International Foundation Chair.
And I'm Kelly Louder, your Rotary International Foundation Committee member. So October 24th is World Polio Day. As most of you in the room know, Rotary International's #1 goal worldwide is polio eradication. Since 1985, more than 4 million children who might have been polio victims are walking and playing normally. In addition, more than 2 billion children have received polio vaccines thanks to Rotary International. And that's because of Rotarians around the world just like you.
I mentioned last week how we're this close to stopping polio around the world. We'd like to show a very short video that will show towards the end exactly what this close means. At the end, there's going to be a map that pays special attention when the year 1985 hits, because that's when Rotary gets involved with eradicating polio. Tom?
So I know you're all wondering, how can I help and get involved? You can do that by donating today to Rotary International's fund. And if you go to rotary.org, there's actually a big blue button in the upper right-hand corner that says donate. If you click on that button, it'll take you through the steps of the process. And remember, we're not asking any of you to give up what you're doing for local foundations, any local support that you give to today. We're asking for an and, not an or.
So yes, right on the screen there is what it looks like with Rotary.org. It's in the upper right-hand corner. It's a big yellow arrow. Remember, when you donate to Rotary International, this is important, 42.5% to 45% of the funds come back to this district right here in Texas in 3 years. So we ask that you please donate today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you. Real quickly on that, I was at the International Convention, and the speaker one of the speakers talking about our donations to the International Fund pointed out that it's not your funds coming back, it's you're donating all of this, and because you donated that, they send money back to us. Where else can you go that you make a donation, and because your donation, they send a portion of that, of what you contributed back into your own area for local projects? Nowhere else are you going to find that I know of. So next up, Past President J.R. Labby with an announcement on the USS Fort Worth. Come on up.
Thank you, President Kirk. Appropriate, entirely appropriate. So 12 members of the USS Fort Worth Support Committee, including Rotarians Eric Fox, Tim Halden, Karen Vermeer Fox, and moi, traveled to San Diego to celebrate the ship's crew and her families for the 11th anniversary of the ship's commissioning. This is just to give you an idea of where we were. It was San Diego, and it was gorgeous. Friday morning when we were there, we were honored to attend the pinning for 3 new Chief Petty Officers, and former Secretary of the Navy Gordon England gifted each new chief with one of his personal Secretary of the Navy coins. They were thrilled to receive those. Friday afternoon, the support committee hosted a happy hour for crew members, nothing like a drunken sailor, and we were thrilled that 4 former captains joined Commander Zoe White at this event. So pictured from left to right are Commander Jeremy Patterson, who rode in the stock show 2 years ago, current Commander Zoe White, some broad that was there with them, Secretary of the Navy Gordon England, the very first commander of the USS Fort Worth, Warren Cupps, Commander Chris Brown, and Commander Spencer Austin. Former Tarrant County Judge Glenn Whitley did not want to be bested in the boot contest, but methinks he came in second. Saturday morning, the committee members were given a tour of the ship. That's what she looked like when we arrived. And our club, I hope, is going to help buy a new awning for the outside of the ship, because while we love TCU purple in this town, it's supposed to be navy blue. This is one of my favorite images from our visit. Former County Judge Glenn Whitley was chatting with Commander Zoe White, and I can only imagine the tales of leadership under fire that they could share with each other. The Fort Worth delegation, that's everybody who went from here on the ship, along with the command senior chief who's on the right. She's brand new as well. Lest we forget, the Fort Worth is a warship. She is armed with a 57mm deck gun that can fire 220 of these rounds per minute automatic at a range of 9.1 nautical miles. And she is the fastest ship in the Navy. She goes 44 knots, which is somewhere in the vicinity of 50 some odd miles an hour. Don't try to water ski behind her, you will die. Tim Halden took some liberties while we were on the bridge, but he is pictured here with Gregory Puga, who hails from Arlington, Texas. And Gregory was celebrated later that day as one of our sailors of the quarter. Images of Texas and Fort Worth are everywhere you look on the ship. The city flag is in the aft hold. The longhorns are over the entry to the bridge. The mugboard in the chief's mess. Our crew loves our city. So what do you get when you combine cake, Oh, Mrs. Renfro snuck in there. By the way, they love the ghost pepper salsa. So if you feel like sending something to the ship, reach out to Doug Renfro and see if we can't get them some more. But they've got them snuck in there. So what do you get when you combine cake, sailors' kids, and support committee members manning the chow line? You get a wonderful Saturday afternoon picnic for the crew and their families on Coronado Island. The credit for the seamless events and logistics that took place the 4 days we were there go to Tim Halden and Karen Fox. None of this would have happened without their work. So we were sent home with this treasure that was made by a member of the crew, and it says, "Thank you for always being there for our crew. You are the original grit and tenacity city." The crew wants to extend its thanks to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth for providing funds that help to purchase books in their library that helps the sailors continue with their professional development while they are on board. I will report to you that morale was as high as I have ever seen it. When we got to the dock on Saturday morning, a brand new Rolls-Royce engine was being lowered into the ship when we arrived for the tour. Now, unless the Navy is completely out of its mind, you wouldn't put a brand new engine like that into a ship that you're going to decommission within 6 months. So Commander White is extremely optimistic that the ship will be underway in early 2024. It will make a stop in Galveston so we can celebrate her return to Texas, and then she will continue on to what will be her new home port in Mayport, Florida, where all the other LCS ships are located. The Fort Worth is the only one of her kind in San Diego. There's not much economy of scale when you do that, but it is the government. Thank you all.
Thank you, Past President JR. Appreciate that. Okay, Chris Nettles, where you at? Come on up here, man. Blue badge announcement. Chris has completed 6 acts of service to the club. Give me that red one, exchange it for a blue one.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations. Thank you. All right, got new member introduction. Past President Sean Snell, come on up with your member. Make it quick. Make it quick.
All right, I got to make it quick. So it is my pleasure, many of you no doubt already know Elizabeth Beck, Councilwoman District Number 9. She's a hometown girl from right here in Fort Worth. She went to UTA where she got a bachelor's in sociology and a master's in city and regional planning. During these years, she was also an Army reservist for almost 9 years, and she was deployed for 1 year in 2005 as an Army sergeant to Taji, Iraq. About 8 years ago, she earned a Juris Doctor from right here, Texas A&M Law School. She's a plaintiff's attorney practicing employment law and works for Lee and Braziel. Did I pronounce the last name? She's, again, a Fort Worth City Councilwoman for our medical district. That's how I particularly got to know her right away. She currently serves on the Regional Transportation Council, Visit Fort Worth Board of Directors, the Near South Side Inc. Board of Directors, among numerous other organizations, past and present. She has a busy household with 2 teenage daughters, Erin, who's 16, Elle, who's 14, and a 3-legged dog and a 3-legged cat. I can't imagine that she has much free time, but when she does, you can find her hiking, rock climbing, kayaking, and wishfully embroidering. Elizabeth, tell us more.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me today. And Wendy, thank you so much. I can't place you in the room, but thank you so much for that opening prayer. It really means so much that you recognize Israel in that. So that's personally very important to me. Thank you. All right. So on a lighter note, a fun fact. I am an avid hiker, and once upon a time on one of those avid hikes in Alberta, Canada, I did run across a bear on the trail. For those of you wondering, we let it live. So people ask, well, what happened? And I was there with a good friend of mine who also is of the redheaded persuasion. And I said that bear popped out on the trail and it saw us, and it, in one direction saw two redheaded women, and in the other direction saw peace, quiet, and berries, and it knew what to do. And so it took that other direction. So thank you all so much for allowing me to join this very prestigious organization. And I look forward to getting to work with you over the coming years. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Here's your packet and your red badge. Let's work on getting those 6 acts of service to the club and changing them soon. Thank you. Carlo, come on up.
Thank you, President Kirk. It is my great pleasure to welcome and introduce Ms. Courtney Garvey to our club. Courtney started with Fort Worth Sister Cities International in June of this year as the Director of Community Engagement. Some of you may know of the 400 cities involved in Sister Cities. Fort Worth is the top program in the country, so it's a wonderful organization. She is originally from Grand Prairie, Texas, did her undergraduate at Louisiana Tech University. Then she said she moved, quote, back to the best city ever, Fort Worth, end quote, after graduation. She began her nonprofit career in 2014 with Type 1 Diabetes Research Foundation, cause near and dear to her as she bravely lives with Type 1 diabetes herself. And she received her Master's of Public Administration from UNT in 2016. Courtney, tell us something interesting about yourself.
Well, thank you, Carlo, for that. And when I knew that I had to get up here and say something interesting, I was messaging with Aurora, and I said, I'm not interesting. I don't know what to say, but I do have something. I work with a local animal rescue, Saving Hope Rescue, and since 2021, I have fostered and found the perfect home for over 40 cats and kittens. So I'm definitely the crazy cat lady of Rotary, and I'm good with that. But thank you so much, Carlo. Thank you to everyone. I'm looking forward to working alongside you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
This is for you. And as I stated earlier, let's work on getting that changed over pretty quick.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now, new member introductions, and we're already to, okay, the chairman of the day is Captain Kirk Driver, Fort Worth Police Department. Step on up. Okay. Thank you, President Kirk. So, I have the distinct honor of introducing Dr. Cheryl Harding today. I am the chairman of the board of the James L. West Center for Dementia Care. Dr. Harding is the president and CEO of the organization. We've worked together for the past several years, and she has been nothing but professional and just amazing at her job. But let me tell you a little bit about her. So here's the stuff from the bio that she sent. She began her position as president and CEO of James L. West for Center for Dementia Care, February 2018. In addition to overseeing operations for residential care, adult day center, community education program, and fund development for this 30-year nonprofit, Cheryl is charged with strategic planning and business development for the center's future to assure a healthy and sustainable future. Cheryl has served in the senior housing and services business for over 35 years. She also taught full-time at the University of Texas, North Texas in Denton, and as an adjunct professor at Texas Women's University, Hardin-Simmons University, Abilene Christian University, and currently at TCU, go Frogs, in Fort Worth, Texas. Cheryl currently serves on the chair of the board for directors for Leading Age Texas, a trade association representing Texas not-for-profit senior living providers. Cheryl graduated from Texas Women's University in Denton with a PhD in family studies with an emphasis in gerontology in 1991. She grew up in Louisiana, received her undergraduate and master's degrees from the University of Louisville at Monroe. She is also a licensed nursing facility administrator. On a personal note, she's always worked in the nonprofit world. She's married, has 6 children and 6 grandchildren. She likes gardening and outdoor activities and serving the older adult community and improving quality of life. So please help me welcome Dr. Cheryl Harding to the stage.
Hello. To move that a little bit. Thank you for having me. I've got to do the little clicker, so give me a second to make sure I know what I'm doing here. Yes, success. Tom can eat now. First, I have to say thank you to Tom, Carlo, and Chris for getting my PowerPoint to work, because of course we had AV challenges when I got here. So thank you, y'all are rock stars. And thank you for allowing me to come and talk about James L. West and aging successfully. So I want to talk about some specifics, but then also some things for you to think about as you age, because we are all aging in this room. I am going to talk about dementia because that's what we do at James L. West. We care for people with dementia. And I just want to make a note about that amazing polio video and the map that showed the progress. I hope I'm still alive when we have a map like that for dementia and Alzheimer's, because that was pretty impressive. And I hope I get to see that one day. So James L. West, we have been here in Fort Worth, just on the west side of downtown for 30 years. This is our anniversary. I have been with James L. West for 5.5 years, wonderful 5.5 years, to serve older adults that are living with dementia and their caregivers. So you may have noticed on the introductory slide, it said James L. West Alzheimer's Care Center, but on my slide, it says James L. West Center for Dementia Care. So one of the things that we did intentionally in the last few years was change our name to dementia rather than Alzheimer's. And you'll understand that more as I go through my slides, but so many people are impacted with dementia of various types, and we wanted to be more inclusive in our care and not have folks think that we only took care of people with Alzheimer's. Another intentional thing that we've done over the past 5 years, moving into our 30th, is to become more community-facing. So James L. West has always provided amazing care in the four walls there on Summit. And we always have provided free education for caregivers, but we've been very intentional about looking out into the community and finding ways that we can partner and collaborate with other not-for-profits, other care organizations, and sharing our knowledge and making sure that that is our platform. So we want to make sure that we can educate everyone possible. So that's a big, important thing for us. Whenever James L. West was founded, Mr. James L. West had dementia, had Alzheimer's, and Mrs. West wanted there to be a care environment that was worthy to care for him. Now, Mr. West never got to live here, but Mrs. West and a wonderful committee of planners from First Presbyterian Church came together and designed the care philosophy for James L. West, which is pretty unique. I've been in senior living for 35 years, and I've been around the country, and James L. West is very unique in the care model that we provide, in the level of care that we provide, and so I'll tell you a little more about that, but it's truly a special place. So did you know that James L. West provides residential long-term care? That's what most people know that we do. So we provide long-term care in a very residential setting, caring for people who are living with all types of dementia at all stages. So our care model allows us to care for folks from early mild dementia all the way through end of life or end stage dementia. And our model allows for us to place people based on their cognitive levels. So it's a very unique model, and if you haven't been there before, I would invite you to come and see. But we also, I also want to say that we are primarily private pay, which has some challenges for folks to have accessibility with us. However, we have been working on ways to provide accessibility in other ways. We also have a contract with the Veterans Administration, so we care for about 25 veterans in the long-term setting there. And then we recently have added short-term rehab. So if you know anything about, if you've been a caregiver for an older adult and they've gone to the hospital, a lot of times it's recommended that you have long-term rehab after a hospital stay. And so we have, our short-term rehab, we have never been able to do that because it is a Medicare benefit. And we have not ever taken Medicare until just recently. So we decided that that was a way for us to serve more people who have dementia. About 80% of people who have dementia live at home by themselves or with their caregiver. They don't live in places like James L. West. So we wanted to be able to touch those folks who live at home. And so we created this a short-term care rehab program specifically for people with dementia. So if you come out of the hospital and you have a need for rehab in order to be able to go back home, you come to us, we do some intensive therapy with our special therapy team, and then you can go back to your home setting. And so that is a new service line for us, truly within the last couple of weeks, that brand new. So we're excited about that, excited to be able to touch more people, reach more out into the community, and just provide our expert services and education to more. The second big piece of news is that our day program, which has been part of James L. West for 30 years, has moved to a new location. So the day program is a drop-off program where people who are living with dementia come and spend the day with us. We provide care and engagement, interesting things for them to do, friends to hang out with while their caregiver's at work or taking a break. And so our program has been there in the building on Summit for 30 years, but we recently moved to a new building across the street from Harris Southwest Hospital, right on the corner. So it's around the corner of Harris and John Ryan, super visible, and we will be able to care for about 3 times the number of people in that building that we were able to care for at our current original location. So that just happened in the last 60 days. So we're excited to have that location and invite you to reach out if you would like more information about that. So I don't think I said this, but James L. West is faith-inspired because we were started by First Pres, and we are a not-for-profit organization. And that, especially to the families who are looking for care for their loved one, is a very important variable, that we are not-for-profit mission-driven, and that we do not have investors or owners who are looking for a profit, that we are truly caring for people because that's our mission, and that all the money that we bring in goes back into our care. The third really big area that I'd like to mention is our education program. So we have a very robust education program for caregivers. So we want to make sure if you know someone with dementia, if you think you might have dementia in your family and you're concerned about it, if you're caring for someone with dementia, we want to be there to support you. We want you to have the best, most latest information. We want you to make good decisions and have what you need to provide that care. So we do have free education for everyone who is caring for a loved one. We, before 2020, I won't say the word, we had all in-person type caregiver education. We now do tons of virtual, and it's available to anyone. In fact, many of our programs are national, attended nationally, but even we've had some folks from outside the United States join us, which is really cool. One of the other things that Mrs. West really wanted for James L. West was to be a teaching institution. So we have a very big emphasis on students and clinical rotations. We have medical students from TCU and HSC. We have nursing students from all kinds of places, and OT, PT, speech, you name it. We provide clinical rotations and education for students, which is super important to developing that workforce for down the road to care for those of us in this room when we need care, because we want people who know what it's like to work with an older adult. We also provide training for healthcare providers and in this classroom as well, not just the clinical rotations, but in the classroom as well. So we're proud of that. And our caregiver education program, we've had it for about 12 years. It's very robust, and we have some expert educators. So we're always happy to provide programs for your other organizations as well about different things about dementia. Okay, so I couldn't talk to you without giving you a few facts about dementia because that is our specialty. So I'm not gonna give you a ton, but I want you to know some things that are important. As people grow older, and today my topic's about aging well or living well, one of the number one fears of growing older is fear of getting dementia. So, you always hear about, you're afraid you're going to run out of money, all those things, but really one of the number one fears is getting dementia. So what can we do about that? Having Alzheimer's or dementia is not a normal part of aging. And I want to give you a little bit of information here today so that you can understand that it is not normal, it is not expected, and there are risk factors and there are things you can do to prevent. But there's also a huge stigma about having dementia. So when you hear that one of your friends or colleagues or family members has been diagnosed, what's the first thing that goes through your mind? What do you think? Do you think, oh, well, they'll live joyfully throughout their life, or they're still there? No, you typically think, oh no, it's a terrible bit of news. However, that contributes to the stigma for having dementia, and that really affects care and the ability for people to live great throughout that time. So here's just a few statistics from Alzheimer's Association, which is a great partner of ours. So I won't bore you with all of that, but I want you just to see that, that people, and I'll talk about Alzheimer's and dementia, the differences here in a second, but almost 2/3 are women. So that's important to know. Really impacts our minority populations stronger than it does the non-minority populations. That's super important to know. And there's really great research going on at HSC right now about the impact of Alzheimer's on minority population. And you can even join a study if you're interested in being a part of that, a brain study, a longitudinal brain study. So as we go through, I want you just to have an overview. This is not a Dementia 101 talk, but I want you to have an overview. There are many, many causes of memory loss and confusion. Dementia is the umbrella term. So if you've not heard that before, just picture the umbrella, and underneath are all types of dementia. Alzheimer's disease being the most prevalent, but look at the list. There's vascular dementia. Dementia with Lewy bodies. I mean, there's just all kinds. And so when you go to the doctor and you get a diagnosis and they tell you one of these, it would be pretty overwhelming to know that you had to figure out what that means for you. But it's very important, like I said, to educate yourself about that. We have a great team of educators that would be glad to do a Dementia 101 more intensive program for you if you would ever like. Other causes. So there's lots of other causes of memory loss. Many times health conditions can cause memory loss, many times depression, and some of these can be reversed. So if you're dealing especially with depression, you can have memory loss happening and it can appear to be dementia, when in fact, once the depression's addressed, then the memory loss goes away. So, but there's other health conditions, heart disease, all kinds of things that can cause memory loss and confusion. Unmanaged stress, wow, that's a big one. For anyone who's in the workplace, there are lots of times that stress is there, so we talk a lot about work-life balance, very important. But also lifestyle choices like drugs, alcohol, and smoking and obesity. So there's that umbrella again. So there you go. It's really dementia is the loss of cognitive functioning and behavioral abilities to the extent that it interferes with your daily life. So these can be judgment, focus, all kinds of things that could cause problems for a person with dementia. But there's the umbrella, there's the types, some of the types, there's over 100 types of dementia. Why is it important to get a proper diagnosis? So many people, because of the stigma of dementia, brush it under the rug and they write it off as something else. They don't address it. They're embarrassed, and they're putting it off. And so it's very important to get an early diagnosis if you have any concern about it, because number one, it would lessen your anxiety to know what you're dealing with. But there's also some medications that are coming out. There's clinical trials. There's new medications that are helpful for people in very early stages. Gives you time to plan with your family, all of those things. There's just a lot of reasons to get a true diagnosis. Talk to your healthcare provider about it. Okay, so normal versus abnormal. So really, we get this question a lot. Memory loss, dementia is not normal. It is not a normal part of aging. And you can see some of the characteristics of normal aging there. How many of us in this room misplace our keys or our glasses or our cell phone and it's in our hand? And yeah, so nobody's right. I saw one hand, there you go. But I know it's true for majority of you. How many times have I looked for my glasses and they were right there? That is normal. It is not dementia. But if you look at the not normal, those are the signs that maybe you need to start seeking a diagnosis and thinking about how you can address the situation. Okay, know your risk factors. So you can see there that it just 30% is genetic. The larger amount is lifestyle choices, things that you can do to prevent. So please consider those as important reasons to, and I think I am off of my slide. Let's see, we had some slide issues, my fault, but let's see, where I can't really see risk factors. Okay, maybe I'm not. There we go. It looks different. Okay, so age, so people 85 and over have a higher risk of dementia than someone 65, right? So growing older, but you can see, I won't go through all of these because Captain Kirk is gonna kill me if I go over. So, not to mention he's my board chair, so I don't need any of that. Okay, so influencers for brain health, this is the key. Work on your brain health. Here's all these wonderful things that you can do to have great brain health. Anything that's healthy for your heart is healthy for your brain. So we all know what those are. Get your good diet, your exercise, all of those great things. But I want to talk just a little bit more about the stigma of dementia. So have you ever thought about that? I asked you the question just a second ago, but have you ever thought what a lonely road that must be for someone with dementia, that especially when their friends all of a sudden don't know how to talk to them anymore, or don't want to talk to them anymore? I'm telling you, dementia is not contagious. It is, you're not gonna have a risk factor of catching it. So please educate yourself about dementia so that you can help us get rid of the stigma of dementia. Let's see, I went too fast, didn't I? And help us really address the myths that we have about dementia. So look at this. I've already talked about memory loss is not normal, but nothing can be done. That's a myth. Oh, they've just got dementia and it's the end of the road. It's not. There's lots of things that can be done. Earlier is better. Catch it early. Lots more things that can be done. If my mom has dementia, then it's inevitable that I'm going to get dementia. That is not true. That is not true. I just showed you the genetic versus the lifestyle. I have lots of choices to make that are different than my mom made, and so I can make a difference there and protect myself. People with dementia don't know what's going on around them. I am here to tell you that is not true. And people with dementia have joy every day. They have wonderful lives. They are wonderful contributing citizens. And if you just talk to your friends the way you've been talking to your friends, it's probably going to go okay. Even caregivers and families are concerned about, what do I say to mom? What do I do? We just work really hard at James L. West to make everything normal. We want people to engage and have fun at their ability, and we want them to have joy every day. So we work really hard to bring joy, and a lot of times that's us working to bring joy to that caregiver too, to give them a light and a moment of joy. So we work with families on how to visit their loved one and things like that. But for those of you, those that are out in the community, there's so many things that we can do to help them. One of the myths is that they have to be placed in a facility. That is a myth. I just said earlier, 80% of the people live in the home. They still live out in the community, in their own home, with a caregiver, possibly a caregiver living with them, but maybe not. So it's just really important to know that these are myths and not true. The stigma of a diagnosis I've talked about a little bit already, but it is so important to not make the jokes. We've all heard them, right? We've said them. But the jokes aren't, especially the older I get and the business I work in, they're not so funny anymore, you know? And so watch that negative language. Be more supportive to those caregivers. So I'm skipping right along here because... Okay, how do you prevent the stigma? Facts, get the facts, educate yourself, be a friend. Don't pull away when you know someone with dementia. Support that caregiver. I was talking to a caregiver yesterday, and she was sharing with me how many friends they had lost, how many couple friends didn't want to have dinner with them anymore, and what a lonely path she was walking. She was talking about her couple of good friends that had stuck by, but the majority of their friends had decided it was just too uncomfortable and couldn't do that. So please don't do that. Ask the caregiver, what's appropriate? What would be the best? How can we still have dinner? Maybe it's dinner in the home. Maybe it's picking a very quiet place. But be conscious of it, I guess I would say. Okay, so living well is aging well, right? So if you are, I'm on a mission to encourage people to live well and to age well. And we are aging from the minute we're born. So why are we so afraid of it? Why do we work so hard to prevent it? Chronologically, we're going to age, but we can have healthy aging. But how you think about aging can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you... Do you think about aging as a time of development and learning, or do you think about aging as a physical and mental decline? How you think about aging will impact you. And so here are just a few stats from several research studies that were combined, positive perceptions on aging. So if you have a positive perception, you're going to live 7.5 years longer, according to a 25-year longitudinal study. You're going to be healthier. You're going to have more friends. You're going to enjoy greater life satisfaction. So please find ways to be engaged and live well. Lifelong learning, spirituality, whatever it is your thing is, find out what it is. Make cognizant decisions about being a healthy ager. All right, and change the narrative. Jokes everywhere, right? And we've all laughed at them. Some of them are funny, but some are not so funny. So work on that. We at James L. West work very hard to change the narrative, especially with our workforce. We want our workforce to know how to respect our seniors and their loved ones and how to talk to them and how to promote positive aging within the building. And so all the student clinical rotations that we're doing and all the education with our workforce is super important at James L. West, because I want there to be good caregivers when I get there and need that care. So, so I am going to stop and see if we have questions. And yes.
I just want to say, I want to thank you personally for this education and the work that you do. I lost my dad about 5 years ago, as I mentioned. He was 92 when he passed. He didn't go down until he was 90. But he and I laughed a lot. And that's one of the things that if you lived a good life, work hard. Thank you for this education.
Thank you.
I miss it, so.
I bet you do, yes. Question? Yes.
Slide said residential and respite care. What is respite?
So respite care is a short-term stay at James L. West. If you wanted to go on vacation and you needed your loved one to be cared for, so it could be 2 or 3 days to a couple of weeks. You can come bring your loved one to James L. West and we'll care for them while you have other responsibilities. We've had people who are having surgery, you know, things like that. Yes.
Hey, I just wanted to say my dad passed away from dementia 2 years ago. And he was manageable at home for like, he was diagnosed at 75. So for 3 years, he was fine. But then he started reliving the past. I just wanted to, and that's probably 20%, but he became a danger to himself. And we had to put him into a memory period. It was the worst nightmare, I think. The worst to me than experiencing family member cancer. But, you know, I'd go home, I'd take him out of the home, I'd take him to Cocoa Beach and watch the fireworks, but he was like a 4-year-old. And you had to be with him constantly, and I just share that because, you know, I think each case is different. I mean, we knew he had dementia when he thought somebody was breaking into the house. He fired off 3 guns, including guns away. And then, you know, eventually he started taking motorcycles away and all that. It was a hard experience.
It is yes, thank you for sharing that. It is a terrible disease. It is a tough experience. But attitude has a lot to do with it. You've got special circumstances where it's just really difficult, but we at James L. West are there to help you if you are walking that journey. You need our support. We will help you walk through it to find a placement. It doesn't have to be James L. West, but it is tough. But even in those moments, you were seeking joy for him by taking him to see fireworks and things like that, and that's very important to continue to seek that joy. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harding. And do you mind staying around a few minutes after you have to leave right away? So if anyone has any more questions or comments, wants to talk further with Dr. Harding, she'll be right up front here after the program. So as was discussed earlier, Rotary has a huge push to end polio, and we are truly this close. So in honor of your presentation today, our club is making a gift to the Rotary Polio Plus Foundation. So here's a token of that. So thank you very much, Dr. Harding. Closing announcements. All right. Number one, we have a Veterans Committee meeting, Governor's Room, 12th floor. Costume contest on the 27th of the month. Prepare for 2 weeks of pictures of dogs in costumes. Yeah, okay, great. Next week, 10/20/23, Steve Ingalls, President, CEO of Catalyzer. Now, again, thank you to our sponsor, Audubon of Fort Worth. Audubon Fort Worth wants you to love what you drive with Porsche, BMW, Volvo, Jaguar, Volkswagen, and Land Rover. Audubon now welcomes Mini Cooper to Fort Worth. For 40 years, Audubon has been bringing premier vehicles and services to discerning automobile enthusiasts. Love what you drive. And with that, y'all have a great weekend. This meeting, oh, whoa, one more comment, sorry. Save the date. November 1st, 5 to 7 p.m., Rotary After Hours is at Game Theory. Connie Blake will have details next Friday, and it will be in Tuesday's Rotograph. With that, have a great weekend.